Hi, Jeff here with Sarracenia Northwest, and today I want to talk about a group of plants that are pretty near and dear to us. And these are a whole bunch in front of me of Sarracenia flava. They're one of the most common pitcher plants in the southeastern U.S. They're very common in people's collections, and there's good reason for that. Sarracenia flava is good size. Some of them are quite big, as a matter of fact. They're easy to grow. They clump quickly in most cases. Easy to get new plants from them. They're very tolerant of a range of climates. What's not to love about these plants? There are many different types of them, though. And what these types are variants or different color forms that will occur within different populations, or even within a population, you're likely to find different ones of these colors that will pop up in there. So we wanted to go ahead and share with you today a little bit more about that and some of these different color varieties. Now, one thing I want to stress is these are not subspecies. This is all the same plant still. These are just some different color variations that pop up within those populations. So let's talk about some of the different varieties of Sarracenia flava that are out there. And a good place to start is probably with the most common one, and that's what I happen to have right here. And this is Sarracenia flava variety flava. In older texts, you're likely to see it called typica. And this is one that's going to be really common throughout the coastal plain of the Carolinas, probably even going down into the Gulf Coast states where flava occurs. And the hallmark feature of this plant is it has just small amounts of red veining kind of going through the interior of the pitcher in most cases. Sometimes you'll see a little stripe in the back of the throat. That people like to call that one cutthroat when they see that. These can really vary in size a lot too. The one I happen to have here is kind of a medium-sized plant. There are ones that'll be a bit bigger than this. This particular flava that I have right here actually has some history in our nursery, because this is a descendant of the very first Sarracenia flava that I ever bought from a nursery in upstate New York. And so we have quite a few of these now, but this is where it all started with me. Now, the one next to it that I have that's got a lot more color going on is Sarracenia flava variety ornata. And you can see kind of where that term comes from, because it is very ornate. All kinds of beautiful red veining going through this. The veining varies a lot in different populations. Sometimes it'll be nice and dark like this one. Sometimes it's a lot lighter, but you'll see it on both the inside and the outside of the pitcher. And so very striking plant. Then we have one where the red veining is more restricted to just one place. This is Sarracenia flava variety Rugelii. And they always have this really distinct red patch kind of in the back of the throat. It's different than the little cutthroat one I was talking about in flava, but it's so striking, you can't miss it when you see these. Most of these plants come from the Florida Panhandle, but again, they can pop up in other populations as well. There's also some variance in how dark that patch will be. We have some here in the nursery that are a little bit lighter. This is a really good specimen of this variety right here. Now, if the red is pretty much only on the lid, then you have this plant right here. This is Sarracenia flava cuprea, and the common name for it is copper top. With copper tops, they will have mostly the red just on the top of the lid, and it does definitely take on that sort of coppery hue. It's not as like deeply red or maroon as some of the other types tend to be, and sometimes the red will go down the pitcher a little bit more. There's a lot of variation in kind of how these will look in some populations. There's some types that where the interior of the pitcher will be more yellow. It just really varies with the particular plant. Then we get into some that have a lot of red going on in them. And this one right here is referred to as Sarracenia flava variety rubricapora. This one tends to have a very deep maroon tube. Lids are sometimes yellow or will start out yellow, and then they begin to darken as the season goes on in them. One other feature of this plant that always catches me by surprise when I'm walking past them is they have a really distinct scent, and I sort of call it the grape bubblegum scent that they've got, part of their attractant. And nectar is often very visible on these. They are a bit slower growing than some of the other variants. Now, if the red is more uniform through the tube, then you tend to have one like this. This is Sarracenia flava atropurpurea. Now, this looks very much like a copper top, where the red just keeps going all the way down the tube. In the best specimens of it, the red will be pretty consistent. Sometimes in our plants, later in the summer, they will turn a fairly deep red, usually not as deep as the rubricapora, but you kind of see that variation that continues to occur. Now, with all of the more red forms of Sarracenia flava, how red they are, how much they're showing of that, really can change a lot. So if you have some of these in your collection and like one year all of a sudden it doesn't look very red, that's not unusual. Things like transplanting, being moved around, weather conditions can all affect how much of the red anthocyan pigment that they make. And finally, we go to the other end of the scale, and that's a flava with no red. This is Sarracenia flava maxima. And so this plant lacks pretty much all of the anthocyan pigment that the dark ones have, or the ones that have some of the red patches. There is a little tiny bit still present where you'll see it in new growth coming out and in any like little damage spots that insects maybe have caused on them. Brand new pictures tend to be very, very green. And the Maxima designation has nothing to do with its size. It's pretty much a pure green plant. They tend to be very average in size. There is an older text from one of the carnivorous plant pioneers, Adrian Slack, that refers to this as being a fairly large plant. And it's quite possible he just happened to have a particularly large clone, but in general, they're not super big plants. Now, as you begin to grow some of these different color forms and variants of Sarracenia flava, something you'll notice that happens is because these all bloom at really similar times, it's really easy for insects to be cross-pollinating between these different ones. And you can, if you grow those seeds, you can end up with just some wild color forms in Sarracenia flava, and that's really a lot of fun. And they tend to be so vigorous anyway. Now, for more information on some of the Sarracenia flava variants and all the different color forms that exist, there's a really good article in one of the 1998 Carnivorous Plant newsletters written by the late Dr. Donald Schnell. He goes into detail about some of the places these different variants are found, some of the populations of them, and some characteristics of each of the flava variants. You can find the link to that article in the description below. Also, visit our website, growcarnivorousplants.com, for information on how to grow Sarracenia. Thank you for watching, and good growing.